The player was prone to injury. Dillon Brooks will be ejected from the game.
Why the whole league hates Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is currently the small forward for the Memphis Grizzlies. He has earned a reputation as one of the most hated players in the NBA. Known for his dirty play, trash talking, and borderline on-court antics, Brooks has made plenty of enemies throughout the league. The question really is, how good is Brooks, and how did he become such a hated player? Let's get right into it. Dillon Brooks spent his college career starting at the University of Oregon. He wasn't expected to become much of a player in the NBA, though, due to his apparent lack of athleticism. Brooks was selected in the second round with the 45th overall pick by the Houston Rockets and was traded to the Memphis Grizzlies shortly after the entry draft.
Remember, the Grizzlies came into the 2017 draft, and on cue, there's a steal.
Like most players selected later in the draft, it was clear that he would have to evolve his game at the NBA level in order to become a role player. In 2019-2020, Brooks broke out for Memphis.
Tonight, he's played well. Brooks against Drew Holiday. Turn gun.
Management rewarded him with a 3-year contract worth $35 million. The team wasn't getting much media attention at the time, but they were showing signs of improvement led by Ja Morant and finished second in the Western Conference with a 56-26 record. After defeating the Wolves in the first round, Grizzlies went on to play the Golden State Warriors in the second round of the playoffs, and Brooks found himself right in the middle of all the action. During Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinals, Dillon Brooks fouled Gary Payton too. Payton fell awkwardly on his left arm and was later diagnosed with a fractured elbow, as well as ligament and muscle damage. After the game, Warriors coach Steve Kerr called the play dirty.
He broke the code. Dillon Brooks broke the code. That's how I see it.
Kerr believed Brooks intentionally made excessive and unnecessary contact with Payton, resulting in his injury. However, Grizzlies coach Taylor Jenkins disagreed, saying that his team is competitive, but they are not dirty. Brooks got suspended for his shot on GP2, but he didn't show remorse regarding his actions on Payton's injury. When asked about breaking the code, Brooks claimed that he wasn't aware of an unwritten code in the league. The back and forth continued after the suspension, though. Draymond Green made some comments about Brooks on his podcast.
I don't like Draymond at all. You don't know me. I just don't like Golden State. Quite frankly, wouldn't like a team that beats me all the time either. I don't like anything to do with them. Quite frankly, you were a little kid in high school watching us win championships. Should be happy that you even witnessed that. Or maybe college, but you get the point. You're a fan. So, that's crazy.
Despite the negative media attention, Brooks continued to play with the same intensity and fire that had earned him his role as a villain in the eyes of the public. But for Brooks, it was all just a day of work. He knew that in order to become a better NBA player, he had to be willing to take risks. Eventually, the Warriors beat the Grizzlies in 6 games and went on to win their 4th NBA championship in less than a decade. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies were sent home packing, but were no longer a team that was flying underneath anyone's radar. These guys weren't only young and talented, but they were starting beef with the best team in the entire league. In the 2022-23 season, the Grizzlies once again were playing very high-level basketball with the same core in place. But in February, Dillon Brooks continued making negative headlines. In the third quarter of a game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, Brooks was driving to the basket when he missed a layup and got tangled up with Donovan Mitchell. As both players fell to the ground, Brooks hit Mitchell in his you-know-what. Mitchell, understandably pissed off, threw the ball at Brooks before getting up and pushing him. This led to a brouhaha between both teams, with players from either side rushing to the scene. The play resulted in the ejection of both Brooks and Mitchell from the game. Brooks was suspended for a game without pay by the NBA for escalating an on-court altercation by pursuing Mitchell in a hostile manner and failing to disengage from the altercation. He apologized for his actions, but it was clear that he didn't learn his lesson because his behavior continued to get more aggressive. During a game against the Miami Heat, Brooks got angry at a cameraman who accidentally bumped into him. Brooks shoved the cameraman, causing him to fall to the ground and break his camera. The incident caused outrage among NBA fans and media, with lots of people calling for Brooks to be punished. Brooks, however, remained defiant, claiming that he was just defending himself and that the cameraman had no business being so close to the court. The NBA opted to fine Brooks $35,000 for his conduct. Later, Brooks got suspended for his 18th technical foul of the campaign, which he picked up after dunking on Dallas Mavericks' Maxi Kleber and then taunting the Mavs bench. By season's end, Brooks was fined a league-high $248,242. Despite the punishment, Brooks seemed unfazed by the fines he has to pay. responding to questions about them saying it's just paper. Dillon Brooks' behavior earned him the nickname Villain Brooks and a reputation as being the most hated player in the league. But in the 2023 playoffs, Brooks took his tactics to another level. Early in the Grizzlies' first-round series against the Los Angeles Lakers, Brooks made headlines for calling LeBron James old and stating that he's not as good as he was when he played for Cleveland. The media jumped all over the story, and Brooks was once again getting attention for his off-court antics. LeBron responded by dominating Brooks en route to wins in Games 2 and 3. Brooks, on the other hand, got ejected from Game 3 for smacking LeBron in the crotch. Ouchie mama. With the Grizzlies down 3-1 in the series to the Lakers, it's time to look more deeply at Brooks and discuss whether or not his play and attitude are helping or hurting his team. So what tends to happen when Brooks starts running his mouth? His actions definitely fired up the Warriors, who handled them in the second round of the playoffs last year. He also put pressure on LeBron James to put up a throwback performance, which the King answered. The fact is that the louder Dillon Brooks gets, the worse he and his teams have actually performed on the floor. It's important to note that this season, Brooks' scoring average have dropped from 18.4 points per game to 14.3 points per game. And that's not because he's become more efficient. Brooks' field goal percentage has also dropped from a below-average .432 last season to a disastrous .396 this year. That's gotta hurt. These numbers prove that despite all the noise, Brooks has actually been playing quite poorly on the offensive side of the court this season. His assists, steals, blocks, free throw percentage, and offensive rebounding averages have also declined this season, even though he's getting more playing time from the Grizzlies coaching staff. Those who argue that Brooks isn't depended on for his offensive contributions because he is a lockdown defender might be misinformed as well. During the 2022-23 season, 11 Memphis Grizzlies players played a minimum 1,000 minutes on the floor. Of those players, Dillon Brooks had the worst defensive rating. Is that because he was frequently guarding the opposing team's best perimeter players? It's possible. But in the playoffs, the Grizzlies have a better team defensive ratings when Brooks is off the court than when he's on the court. It's clear that Dillon Brooks loves running his mouth, but he doesn't have the talent to back it up. A man who worked so hard to earn an NBA career as a second-round pick is now more of a media spectacle than a positive contributor to his team. He fuels his opponents, is incredibly inefficient on offense, and is arguably mediocre on defense too. Dillon Brooks is a liability to a promising young Grizzlies team right now, and he should be worried about his future with the organization. With Brooks' contract expiring at the end of the season and the Grizzlies needing to improve their roster, it would be a bad choice for them to sign him to a contract extension. With the cap space that the Grizzlies clear by letting Brooks go, they will be able to find another capable wing defender who will be much more efficient on the offensive end of the court. And we don't envy the team that opts to fork over a significant contract to Dillon Brooks this offseason.